Hello, this is Kevin, also known as AKAAWOL, and today I'm going to show you how I made this bag. Warning, this is an advanced friendship bracelet bag tutorial, so for those of you who may be struggling with making smaller bracelets, please don't waste a bunch of string and get all discouraged. Just watch along and have some fun, and consider it something to shoot for the future. Now with that out of the way, let's get going. So, as most bags do, this one starts with a single loop. Now, I got all of the blues out to be able to kind of examine it and get it set. What this comes down to is there is a single strand for what's on the far right and a single strand that's on the far left. And I have to get those traded off from one side to the other so that way all the strings end up doubled up. This is partially because I like the thicker fabric for the bags, but it's also partially because that's the only real effective way of being able to still have these nice, really pretty kumuhumo loops. Not sure if I'm saying that right. It's Japanese, so not easy for an American to say. Anyways, so yeah, my kumi loops kind of take a bit of a precedence in this, as well as, like I said, I like it to be doubled up for the thickness of the bag. It'll increase the likelihood of this thing lasting for years and years, right? As you can see, I have the colors are not like just, from the darkest to the lightest. I had to work this all out on paper, and all of those images of where this is worked out is all available over on my website, AKAAWOL.com. Just go ahead and look under the tutorials. It should be easy to find. You can see kind of that, like, obviously, this is all sped up, but I did, it did take me a bit of time. I'd say this thing's probably been a good 2 weeks to put the whole bag together. And here you can see 2 loops coming together. When I traded off the strings on the left-hand side of the one you see on the right there, it matches the ones from the other that, is on the far right of the other one. And that makes its own diamond, makes its own path coming downwards. So there's a lot of room for error, and that's why I really say this one's pretty advanced. This is a pretty complicated setup. And not to discourage you guys from actually trying it. I mean, if you played with this pattern as like on a bracelet or something, and you get it and it comes easy to you, then by all means, I encourage you to go ahead and take it that extra step, make it into a bag. But honestly, this one is a bit of a doozy, and giving it as much color as I did, there's 6 shades of blue. And mind you, every single one of those blues in this bag, there's 212 strings, I think. So, I think half of that is blue. All of the blues had to be replaced because they get used more than the red. So, that's another thing that's really time consuming. And if you're impatient, this might be another deal breaker right there. That said, I mean, I'm a bit impatient, and for me, I use that to kind of drive me along and make these projects actually happen. If I wasn't so impatient, I wouldn't sit there for hours on end just tying knots after knot. So here's 3 loops. At this point, you could actually attach the 2 ends to each other. Now, that's kind of it'd be too small for much of anything. I don't even think you could fit your driver's license inside if you did it. But kind of gives you an idea of how the pattern works. And basically, I repeat these 3 more times to make 9 loops for the overall bag. Again, it's just something that I can point out that actually happens. It's not necessary. It just happens to work out that way. This pattern is changeable, though. The way that these things interlock could be actually put together differently. And I'll kind of explain that a little bit later on, but it's really, I really do like this pattern overall. I really do. Once you get the hang of it, once you recognize kind of what's going on, it can be relatively simple, or at least I don't have to look at a pattern to actually make it work. I need a pattern to set it up and get the strings going in the right sequence in the beginning, but that's true with a lot of patterns that I put together. So see, this one here has the same exact colors as the first one, right? The dark blue is in the center, the lightest blue is just to the left of that, and then the next one is to the left of that as well. So yeah, this is, I don't know, I feel like the brightness is kind of off on this. It's really difficult to get the camera to really show the colors properly, as well as like having the lighting and stuff for the cameras. It's when you put on bright lights to make it so the camera can see it, I think it kind of blows out some of the color here. So I'm sorry if this isn't quite true to form. I am trying. Yeah, I can't imagine if I tried to actually show you guys this at real speed what it would be like. Although I can say I am still working towards the goal of doing live streaming, in which case if anybody's interested, we could do this at real time where you guys can ask questions or just talk to me in general. I think it'd be a lot of fun. And then later I can just go ahead and speed it up for the regular videos that I do. Because, yeah, this would have been days worth of potential footage and stuff. And being able to answer your guys' questions, that would be a lot more fun, I think. So, and you might notice here, like, these are well anchored to each other, right? So, like, there is really no need. I could just go ahead and add on the next loop. What I'm actually doing is, as much as I can, while it's still nice and flat. Well, I say as much as I can. I did link it before it was as long as it necessarily could have been, but I like to get the work done while it's flat, but once it gets to like nearly the 9 loops, it's taking up a lot of space on my desk and going all the way across the board, which, yeah, that's not as great. Mind you, this bag is probably, well, actually I can tell you I have a ruler. It is, when you kind of lay it flat, it's only like 7 inches across. If you have it opened up, that's like 4.5 inches, maybe a little bit more. So yeah, it's a pretty decent sized bag. I mean, you could fit your phone, a wallet, keys, and then some easily. I'm not sure why the blue light is there, but I think I was kind of playing around with trying to get an artistic shot. You can see, too, the area I'm working on is near where there are 2 clips. Having the clips helps make sure that everything stays nice and steady and doesn't get bent too much out of shape. Mind you, I'm constantly making little adjustments. If it seems like lines that should be going straight through the bag aren't, I kind of give it, a little tension here or there, change where it's clipped in order to help make sure that everything comes out nice and straight. And in the final project, you can probably really kind of make that out because it really, I don't know, I think it looks fantastic. So, and I'm not, I don't go kind of so nitpicky over each and every knot, like sit there and try to fiddle with it or anything. I just tie my knot, be done with it. If I notice that there's a gap above where I'm about to tie a knot, I might pull a little bit tighter to help close that gap and use tension to help correct whatever mistake had been made earlier. And it seems to work for me. So, maybe you guys can give it a try. Let me know what you think. Yeah. The red and blue, too, I think is a really fun combination for colors here. I really think that this one was something pretty neat. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think my wife might have been the one who had said, let's try this as something different. We were playing around with the rainbow one before. Mind you, I've had this string on hand for almost 2 years now, and it got set aside somewhere safe. And right before my big order came in, I was kind of going through everything and discovered that and decided, no, rather than going on to the new projects, I want to get some of the older ones out of the way first. So that's what we have here. You can also see that from this shot, you can kind of see like I've got a lot done on the right hand side, and I just kind of pick an area and kind of just go at it. Mind you, any time that you are adding even just one knot, you're that much closer towards the end, right? Well, in this case, I pick an area and just kind of work on it until basically I can't, and then just move on to the next area. And that's, some people talk about like segment knotting and getting it down to like an exact design of how they want to do it. I'm not doing that at all here. I'm just picking an area, and because I'm concentrated in that area, I already have the strings are untangled from each other. There's nothing in my way. It just makes for the whole project to move along at a pretty quick pace. And because this pattern really lends itself to that, like you can really just kind of concentrate on any given spot. Oh, this spot. This is my Patreon supporters got this as a little sneak peek as to what I was working on. They had seen some of the other photos of just the loops and stuff when I got going, but this was actually, any of my Patreon users will recognize this a little bit right here. So, oh, and here it is finally. Roll it around this. It's a piece of plastic I've been using to be able to join the two ends together. So at this point here, it's now becoming a cylinder. And it's no different than when I was joining the other loops together, other than the fact that it does, in fact, make it into a cylinder, and that's the beginning of a bag. And again, so if you're new to my channel, this idea of working from the top down means that I have these lovely loops up at the top and a nice clean start to the whole bag. And then I conceal the loose ends and the strands and stuff in the base by turning it inside out and knotting it off. So the top part where, the person using it is going to see it all the time, it just has this really nice clean start. So there you have that. Yeah, this bag, I really got to say, I'm really, really proud of it. It really is a thing of beauty. Even if it doesn't photograph well, I still can't get over the colors. So I'm going to try to make some adjustments to make it as good as I can for you guys, but I really think my camera tries to do a little bit too much saturation, so it's I don't really have professional gear. I guess that would be way too expensive, but hopefully it's good enough. You guys have to let me know what you think. I'm doing what I can. I think it's just the red and blue maybe it messes with the white balance. I don't know. If anybody's got camera experience and wants to tell me like how to improve on this, I'm all ears. I'll accept the fact that I know knots better than I know photography. Oh, did you see that right there? I shifted the whole thing to get it to straighten out. There was like a whole, move it within the clip to get it to come around to a nice straight row. See? And then there you go. Move it to a different loop. Again, trying to gain control over getting the rows to come in nice and straight. And I don't know. I mean, I think that comes from experience. I don't think there's much of a way that I can teach you as to how to do that for yourself. You're going to have to kind of play with it and try to see whether or not you can bend and straighten out a bracelet, or for that matter, a bag. I can explain what I do. I mean, it's really about getting the work to come together by shifting one side or the other, or tightening up the knots a little bit more than you had before. But beyond that, I think it comes down to a sense of feel. You have to kind of know how tight your knots normally are, and know that, a little extra tug here and there can help to shift things around. And you can kind of, as you watch this, actually, you can kind of see it happening. Occasionally, you'll see something kind of shift upwards as it goes along. So, yeah. And that's possibly why I can actually pull off a bag like this inside of 2 weeks, where this might take somebody else a month. Is because I don't spend a lot of time on every given knot. I work on it as a bigger picture, I guess. Because, like, on the next row, I can cause it to shift if I didn't get it tight enough. And mind you, I think my knots are actually kind of pretty tight. I've seen a lot looser, that's for sure. So, well, that was kind of fun. I forgot I did that. My camera had been kind of getting in the way, so I shifted it over. I forgot that I actually left it going while I did that. That was cool. Although I'm not sure this is the greatest angle, but, well, it's artsy. And it gives you an idea. There really was a lot of hours put into making this. I can't stress that enough. If you find it, that you start bracelets and don't finish them, this is, again, probably not for you. Because really, it takes me, I don't know, like, first, like, as soon as I'm done with my lunch or whatever, like, I have to get into making this and just focusing on it and putting in as much time until I can get its biggest part done, because otherwise it's just not going to be finished within the couple weeks, like I said. So, there's my little subscribe robot. Please do subscribe. It does help encourage me to do more. I really do appreciate it. Thanks. Okay, so here we are, partway through this bag, and at this point, I've given it a lot of thought as to how to do the base. Normally, before I even do the loops, I have this all figured out. This time it was a little bit different, and what I've come up with is, well, let me show you on here. When you do a bag, if your diamonds at the end, like if this is, say, the bottom of the bag, and you just bring it down like this, if they're short and many, like, okay, I started this one off with 9. If I left it with 9 here, you would essentially end up with a great big hole in the middle of the bottom of the bag, and that's not good. And essentially what I've kind of figured out with over time is that if you don't want that to be a problem, you need to at least have the diamond to be able to come to the halfway point, right? So whatever your radius is from across the bag, it needs to come at least to the halfway point. All right, so that's, while working that out, I figured out that if the bag has 9 loops, if I condense it down to having 3 large points coming in, I should be able to anchor those together and actually have it turn out pretty nice. So that is the plan. Now, as far as this pattern goes, this is really super simple. I've done it a few times, so perhaps that's what makes it easier for me. The bigger square is like this, right? So there's 3 on either side, making it 9 squares inside. Then it's a 1. Then it's 2. Then it's 1. And that's it. That just repeats. The next one will be the 3. As long as you can remember 3, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 2, 1, you really won't need much of anything written down. The trick in what makes it so interesting is how the next one works next to it. So the next one next to it is another 3, 1, 2, 1. And then you can see how it would repeat again. You can change how many times this comes downwards, or you could put the next one up higher again. That's what I did with the bag. You can see it comes down 3 and then back up 3, down 3, up 3, right? And that stays the same throughout the whole thing. I could have brought this much further down, and I've done that in the rainbow bag, but this is where your creativity comes into play and what we are working with here. So I just kind of thought it would kind of make sense to throw that in. And all right, let's get back to making. So hopefully that helped you a bit. Like I said, to me, this has now become easy because I can see it like that. The 3, 1, 2, 1, 3. And again, my website has the pattern and kind of shows you a whole breakdown on how I did everything. And in fact, I included a lot of photographs I took along the way. Now here I'm going to show you how I added the string. I took a full length of, 1/3 and cut it in half. So these are only 1/6 of a skein. And you can see I kind of loop it in there and then tie the knot with it looped inside, and then use that new string to tie the next knot, and then take the tail of the old one and kind of sandwich it into it. And I'll do that kind of sandwiching of the old string for a couple, 2, 3 times, just to make sure that it's not going to go anywhere and come unraveled. That one, I kind of cut the thing short, so here, I'll show you it again. So I loop it and put it right over, like there, the red one. Bring it all the way up to the top, and then do the second half of the knot. Now that can't go anywhere, so now I take that and go to the next string over, bring it up, and then the old tail flips over to the side. Kind of all thumbs there for a moment. And then continue tying that knot. So, and again, this is something that works out really well because the strings are doubled. That being able to loop it on there assures that it can't just get pulled out at some point later on. And if I were to have done this in a single strand, first off, there would have taken a whole lot longer because it takes so many more knots per square inch. But I think there would be a real problem with trying to add the strings and having it added securely. So if you're looking for a reason to go and double it up, there's another advantage for you. Mind you, you don't need to do that necessarily on a bracelet, because with a bracelet, you know the length of your strings. You can actually have that all worked up beforehand. But when it comes to making something big like this bag, you kind of really want to be able to have that ability to add strings, because trying to have strings long enough for something this big, that would be, well, it would just take so much longer to make anything, even longer than having to add the strings. Like I said, every single blue on this whole bag got replaced before I hit the end. And that, as time consuming as it is, if I were to try to have had those strings, let's see, they started at 2.3 meters, and I add another 6. That's It would have been longer than 3 meters, 3.5 meters maybe. Yeah, trying to pull up those strings each time. I can just imagine the shoulder pain that I would have, as well as just it would take forever. So again, you know that all my string was cut into thirds to begin with. There, I just cut it in half. And by cutting it in half, because there's 2 to each of these colors, I can use each half equally and with nothing actually left over. So that worked out really nice for me as well. And I think you can kind of see what I'm doing here. This one was probably like the best example I had. So and then see how I just kind of shift it out of the way and then put it in the middle, then shift it out of the way. And that helps make it so that way when it's all said and done, I can trim it down. And you kind of have to be careful at this point, like when you're adding on the strings, that you don't accidentally like tie to those strings. You kind of have to make sure they're kind of tucked inside when you're done with it, because it can get a little bit confusing because suddenly there's just way more string in front of you. So just a heads up on that one. Had a couple times in the past where that was a problem. Didn't have it with this bag, but I have in the past. And there you go. Up in the top corner, you can see what it looks like when I turn it inside out and I have to trim off those bits. So all part of the whole process. And you can see like it's all the blues got really, really short. And some of them I traded off a little bit sooner than others, only because maybe it landed in an area where it was easier, like where there's a nice long straight row, is much easier to add it than if it's at one of these little tiny turns right here. So that's something to kind of take in and keep in mind while you're doing it. Kind of assess how long the string is and whether or not you can actually spare it until it can have a nice long straight row. Otherwise, you might have to come up with some other solutions for how you're going to add it on there. So again, like any of my other ones, if you guys have questions, please, by all means, leave it in the comments. I do try to, take those into consideration. I try to answer, and I also try to figure out whether or not I can actually use that in, like say my next video and stuff, to try to really show you an example of whatever it was that you were asking. Yeah, there you go, adding another string. And hopefully this bit here, has been useful to you guys, that you guys get how to add the strings. I have another video on it I did a couple years back, so you can always go check that one out as well. I think it was just about that. So again, any kind of questions, let me know. I do get some questions occasionally where I'm not sure if people have actually watched the video. So if you're watching this and going, or if you haven't, you saw the thumbnail and you just were like, how do you make the bag? Well, watch the videos. That's part of the key. And obviously, if you watch this far in, I guess you do watch my videos fairly well. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Oh, and subscribe. Seems like 50% of the people who watch my videos aren't subscribed, so it doesn't cost you anything. Please do it. So here it is. This is the sealing up the base. I had it down to 3 points, and you can tell those are not my hands. That is my wife who's tying those up. She's able to do it where it just drives me insane because I end up with blisters on my hands. I don't know if I try to just do it too tight or whatever, but she put this together for me, and bless her heart, man, because she made quick work of this for sure. And just lining up the two sides, that's all there is to it. and tying them up into a square knot or a reef knot, as I believe they are also called. So, okay, so here we have it. You can see that by bringing it down to 3 points, it came out with this really interesting triangular base, which, I don't know. I mean, it seems like it could be a place where your keys and stuff might end up down there at the bottom. But overall, I'd still say this bag is quite practical. It can easily fit, like, say, my phone. It can fit right down in there. So that's not bad. I still have to make the strap for it before I can put it into the shop, but it will be in the shop here shortly. If you're interested, drop me a line. Let me know. Maybe if you're nice about it, I could work out a nice deal for this. Like I said, I am trying to come up with some new equipment, so I am in a position where I really would like to have a sale done. So anyways, again, any questions you have, leave it in the comments or send me an email or however you guys want to reach out to me. I really love how this thing turned out. And if you look close, again, every single blue was replaced. I don't think there's a spot on here where you can actually see that it happened. So if you're interested in making something, this method obviously works out really, really well. Because, yeah, there's not a sign anywhere as to where I added. So, all right. So, until next time, don't get your strings in a bunch.